Hey there, and welcome to another episode of RQTOTD, or Random Quick Tutorial of the Day. Now, today we're going to be talking about how you can use Blender to make bumpy, spiky, or porous materials that look like they're the product of something that comes out of an electron microscope or an atomic force microscope. And specifically, we're going to be talking about a cool material called DLC, or diamond-like carbon, also called amorphous diamond. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about how you can use Blender to make some organic-looking particles on top of this microscopic surface as well. So here's a few pictures of some SEM micrographs that I took actually in my science fair project when I was a kid doing work on dinosaur and bird eggshells. And you could see that they all have a kind of a pretty characteristic look about them. And under an electron microscope or AFM, pretty much every material looks a little bit bumpy or rough or dirty like this. So here's a representation of a DLC coating from an atomic force microscope. And this shows an area of about 1 micron by 1 micron. So these things are pretty tiny. And you might need a diagram showing a 3D representation of this material someday, if you work in material science. So first I'm going to show you how we make a flat surface that has a DLC coating on it. And the first thing we're going to do is add a mesh object, and specifically a grid. And you can see that in the lower left corner in the Add Grid box, we're going to change the subdivisions so that there's 20 by 20 subdivisions. Then I'm going to go to the Modifier tab, or the little tab with the wrench on it, and add a new Displace modifier. And on the right-hand side, I'm going to click on the little icon next to the New Texture area, and we're going to add a new texture called Voronoi. And you can see if we play with the intensity and size sliders a little bit, we can make all sorts of different patterns on the surface of this grid. And to make it look a little less blocky, we're going to right-click on the object and click on Shade Smooth. And you'll see it has a whole different appearance after that. Now we're going to do the same thing again, except for after we add our mesh grid, we're going to change the subdivisions so it's got twice as many subdivisions, so 40 by 40. And you see when we do that, it makes a lot more of these little spikes. And you can see it's getting much closer to the appearance of the DLC in that AFM picture we saw earlier. Now you see as we play with the intensity, size, and a few other things, you can see some pretty big differences in the appearance of this material. Now just for comparison, we're going to try this one more time, and we're going to double up the subdivisions to 80. And you see it's got a whole lot of spikes on it, and it looks pretty close to a DLC coating. And if we continue to play with these sliders a little bit more, you could see that one of the options gives us a surface that looks really porous. Now, just for fun, we're going to make it look a little bit more like an SEM picture. So I'm going to take this bumpy surface, and I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to click on Shading on the tab on top. And as I do that, I'm going to pull it up, and you can see the shader that I've already set up for this. And when we zoom in on it a little bit more, you can see how I've set the shader up. It's a standard principled BSDF with an emission, a mix shader, and a layer weight, all connected together just like this. And now when we look at the surface of pores, as I play with the intensity a little bit, you can see that it's got a texture and appearance and color that's pretty close to an SEM micrograph. And if we just play around with all the different features within the modifiers and texture tabs on the right, we can make a huge range of different types of faux microscopic materials. I hope this is helpful to some of you who have to model microscopic things. Please be sure to subscribe and like, and thanks for watching.